Hey, Ashley, what'd you learn this
Hi.
week?
I learned that the government is storing 1.6 billion pounds of cheese in a cave in Missouri.
Like government brick cheese?
Yeah, it's government cheese, cheap cheese. And I can't get to the bottom of it. I'm not exactly sure where it is, but it's 1.6 billion. And that's a lot of cheese to hoard. Are they giving it out? Is it for an apocalypse? I believe it's because they bailed out the dairy industry at one point, and then they just
Hmm.
stockpiled all this cheese, and people are saying the cheese never actually goes bad. I've seen mold on cheese. Cheese can definitely go bad. So
That's
what are they
called blue
doing?
cheese, Ashley.
Yeah, but this is like these are big blocks of cheese. They could build a house out of
When I
like
was
it.
younger, we were in a rough patch, and so we'd have to go to the food pantry, and they
Mhm.
had government canned pork with like just a pig profile on the can, and then these big hunks of government cheese. And you know what it took? It took like a nuclear bomb detonation to melt that stuff. Like there
Mm.
was no way you're going to make a little bit of mac and cheese out of government cheese. So it does sound like a giant constipation problem as well when I hear we're talking
So you
about
think that they are storing all this cheese as sort of a nuclear fallout shelter?
if it'll I mean it's like Twinkies. If they'll survive a nuclear blast, this cheese will too.
Well,
So
maybe
Twinkie
that's where I'll go then.
indigestible cheese, that's what we have to look forward to.
All right. Okay. Well, everybody, now you know it. Go get some cheese. Let's get this show started.
This is the Tango Alpha Lima podcast.
They call me crazy cause I'm facing all my giants. They try to scare me into thinking I can fight it. They tell me I should never even think of trying. But that's just me, I'm gonna live out in defiance. Yeah, I think I like it.
Welcome, Alphas. We've already made it to the end of January. I am frozen. Our guest today is Dr. Marshall Bahr, a former Special Operations Army Ranger medic, physician, and founder of the newly launched Veteran Addiction Treatment Program, Lead the Way Recovery. We're going to talk with him about his unique approach to addiction and substance abuse and much more. But first, it's time to go on Troll Patrol. Stacey, what do you got for us?
Well, today's social media comment isn't really a troll, but a question from a follower that we thought we'd bring up, right? So, Stuart Povic says, I was told by American Legion that I couldn't join because I was not an American citizen. Yet I served 20 years in the US military as a legal immigrant. What gives? Uh,
Hmm.
I'm sorry, but whoever told you that was completely wrong and sent you down a path of misinformation. And I'm really, really sorry. Ashley.
Yeah. Yeah, and in fact, some people, there's a whole program that you can use joining the military to become a citizen, right? And bring people over from wherever you came from. I remember reading about that. But also, even if you don't want to, you're a legal immigrant, you can absolutely serve in the military. So there's not a requirement of citizenship to be a member of the American Legion, only a requirement of military service. And even if not that, you can be a auxiliary member. And any legal immigrant who served in a capacity that meets the eligibility requirements can indeed be a member. So join. Stuart, we want you.
Yeah, I mean, I served alongside folks who were not necessarily US citizens just yet, and were working toward naturalization. What I will say is that if you served and you still haven't gotten your citizenship, please do seek out the American Legion, the right people who are willing to help you with the right information, because they can help you get fast tracked to your naturalization. And they even host naturalization ceremonies at some of the posts. So,
No
uh,
way.
yeah, Stuart, hey, I'm sorry. Please give us another chance. Come
Come
back.
back. Come back, Stuart. Come back. We want you. We also have a membership FAQ on the American Legion's website to help clarify some misconceptions. Go to legion.org/membership/FAQ. And that way you can kind of see what we got going on there. But if you have any other eligibility questions, feel free to contact the American Legion National Headquarters membership staff by email at membership@legion.org or call 317-630-1321. All right, Alphas, we'll be back for OChat 30 with Dr. Bahr right after the break.
When you think of WellCare Medicare Advantage, think of more, as in more of the benefits you want and more of the hands-on support you need. The American Legion and WellCare have teamed up to deliver that for our veterans. WellCare Medicare Advantage plans are designed to work alongside your VA benefits, giving you access to local health care options and more. Visit wellcareforveterans.com today or call 844-917-1165. Ohana Health Plan, a plan offered by WellCare Health Insurance of Arizona, Inc. New Mexico Dual Eligible Special Needs Plan DSNP members. As a WellCare by Allwell DSNP member, you have coverage from both Medicare and Medicaid. Medicaid services are funded in part by the state of New Mexico. New Mexico Medicaid benefits may be limited to payment of Medicare premiums for some members.
All right, Alphas, welcome back. I hope you had a nice break. I'm wearing a giant coat because my heating's been turned off in my apartment, and that's what I get for paying in Chuck E. Cheese tokens. I hope you're having a great day. Today, Stacy and I are joined by Dr. Marshall Bahr, former Special Operations Army Ranger medic and physician on a mission to find a cure, not just a temporary fix, for veterans who struggle with addiction and substance abuse. Dr. Bahr, hello, how are you today?
I'm doing great. It's nice to meet both of you guys today.
Bye.
You too. And Stacy, you're going to kick us off with the first question.
Yes, I will. Hey, can I call you Doc for short?
Man, that's what I used to be called back in my day, so I'm used to it.
Perfect. Okay, thanks for joining us, and thank you for your service. I read that you were originally from Omaha, Nebraska. Is that right?
That's true, yeah.
Nice. Fun fact, I graduated from high school up the road in Canton, South Dakota, which is just shy of Sioux Falls. I don't know if you've ever made it up that way. Yeah. And I said, I put on my dream sheet, I said, send me anywhere. I want to go to Europe, Turkey, wherever. And they sent me to Offutt Air Force Base.
No,
Living the dream. And then, so we have that connection, but I also have a service dog from America's Vet Dogs. And a little friend told me that you also have one. Is that right?
that is true. I've got one as well, a golden lab, yeah.
I love that. Well, welcome. So, as Ashley mentioned in your intro, part of your practice, or in part, focuses on substance use rehabilitation. And there are many veterans who self-medicate. We know that this is historically goes back, but whether it's, my grandfather was a Pearl Harbor survivor, often had a scotch in his hand, and that was his way of kind of dealing with it. But many veterans go through their struggles and self-medicate, leading to addiction. What are you doing through your programs, and how does your own combat experience sort of color and guide your programs?
Yeah, so man, this is such a pressing topic, especially for me right now. I have a really close connection to it because, for me personally, I was part of that epidemic. I had my own issues with substance abuse related to my combat PTSD, and a lot of this has grown from that. One, it's allowing for vulnerability, which I had identified as a big weakness in our military cohort, and being able to ask for help, right? And I wanted to be willing to be a face of that, to expose my past, myself, to be hopefully an advocate and a champion for others like myself to be willing to come out, because the reality is a lot of this stuff can be preventable if we identify it early on. But veterans, they are a very vulnerable population. Usually, we hear stories all the time about the VA and mismanaged medications, and so really being able to have a patient-centered practice that understands veterans, that's run by veterans, I think that's going to help identify the problem and treat it faster than we have seen previously.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, being able to, when it seems to me, and all the veterans that I've interviewed, when they talk about psychologists or therapists that try to treat them, they can just get up and leave if they say, hey, tell me how you feel. Like, what are your actual feelings? They're just like, screw you. Let's talk about something real. faff around with me. So I like that a lot. It makes me wonder, as a doctor, okay, when you were experiencing substance abuse problems, did you know what was happening, and you were just ignoring it, or did you was there like a disconnect?
Yeah, it's interesting because, I'm very cerebral, right? My background being a physician and everything. It took me a while to self-identify what was going on. I think many people, and I'm not alone in this, but we're very well adept to rationalizing what we're doing, right? And so for me, it wasn't that I had a substance abuse problem. It was, I have, PTSD, and I don't need someone to tell me about that. I know I'm just going to treat it on my own. And it wasn't, and while it may have worked temporarily, eventually there becomes a threshold where it becomes an issue, and it actually will start to exacerbate some of the other underlying mental health issues, for me, which was PTSD. And this happens amongst many different veterans as well. They have a mental health issue, right? And they self-medicate, whether that's alcohol or other substances. And while it may work temporarily, eventually the cycle starts and they end up in a path that can be very destructive.
I'm wondering, Doc, I mean, we both were in the military and we both full well that drinking is a part of the culture, and how much of that culture predisposes veterans to being or to turning to self-medication, especially like, say, alcohol, for instance. Have you found that they're predisposed, or is that just par for the course?
Well, it's hard to say if they're predisposed, right? Because a lot of it's genetic factors, or if they've had a familial member that has suffered. But we do know statistically that veterans have a higher prevalence of alcohol abuse. Now, I don't want to say there's causation, but there definitely is correlation, right? When you think about our time in the military, it's definitely that warrior culture. So you work hard, you party hard, right? You go on deployment, you come back and you let loose, and then you wake up at 5 a.m. and you go run 5 miles. So, and it's accepted, right? And I can tell you many times that I witnessed, binge type drinking on the weekend while I was in the military, but it was normalized and it was accepted and it was actually promoted. It was part, it was very masculine to do, right? And then get up and be able to pass your PT test the next day. And so, while you're able to do that in the military setting, you're in this vacuum with, men and women of your unit that you can, have shared experiences with. But then once you get out, you discharge, a lot of times veterans find themselves on this, personal island where they're kind of by themselves, they're isolated. And now they take this, what may have been a coping mechanism in the military, and they start using it individually. And it can actually, sometimes we see transition to that problem.
Yeah, I think our bodies are amazing. You look at Marines chain smoking while running their PT test, and you're like, that's an amazing picture. And there's part of my brain that goes, man, like, how are you able to do that year after year? There's something that is still continuing to push. But it's also obviously, we would think about how much further along we would be if we weren't doing those things. I talked to professional athletes, and I always thought that they were really locked down, and they'll talk to me about their drug culture, the cocaine and things that are just paraded around. And I'm like, you're being paid millions and millions of dollars. I'm surprised they don't just absolutely make sure you stay away from that stuff, but it just doesn't happen.
Yeah, and I think that highlights too, a professional athlete or even, a veteran, you can have issues with substances, right? And still be a very high functioning member of society. And so that's why a lot of times it goes so long without being identified, because, I know plenty of veterans that are really good at putting on a mask and hiding things and keeping it from others. And, so you can be, that's, I guess, one of the big reasons and one of the big issues is in identifying it early. It's hard to sometimes identify individuals.
Yeah.
There's also this delicate approach, right? So what advice do you have for a family member or a friend or a loved one or a battle buddy who knows that that person nearest them is sort of a closeted addict. What can we do to, because they're going to have to come to it on their own. You can't force them into care and support. So what do we do in the meantime?
Yeah, it's tricky, right? You know, we've seen over and over again, it's hard to force someone into recovery. And we know this from the court system, mandating people to get into recovery programs. It doesn't work effectively. The individual has to want to change. So what typically happens is, you know, on an individual level, you hope that they have that enlightening moment. Many people will say it's that rock bottom moment, but as a family member or a loved one or a battle buddy, you don't want to see them get to that level. So it's, you know, that fine line of trying to provide intervention without, you know, pushing them away or making them feel ostracized or offended. A lot of the time it's just, you know, I think it takes a high emotional IQ, that high level of empathy to identify kind of what that individual may be feeling. So then you can try to get to that level and communicate at their level where they're at currently. And then it's kind of gauging where they're at. You know, are they ready? How ready are they? And being equipped with the resources that are available. You know, just because you're suffering doesn't mean, you know, they have a problem. You know, it is treatable, you know, expressing that, and it doesn't have to be with drugs. It can be through a whole different slew of modalities. But I guess it's just trying to intervene early and providing the resources that are available, and then hoping they come to that decision on their own.
What does that intervention look like, though?
Yeah, so you'd hope, from what I've experienced personally, is you know an individual, you know, that say you have an individual that's suffering, right? For me, I know a ranger buddy of mine, right? And I know them intimately enough to identify that something's off, something's not going on, right? And then, you know, talking with other loved ones, a spouse, hey, everything going okay? You can start to deduce that there's an issue going on. And then, you know, I'm equipped with enough information. I know my friend well enough to say, hey, point blank, like, hey, what's going on? Something's not right. You're struggling. You know, I think honesty, instead of tiptoeing around the subject, is appreciated more, especially someone that you care about or love deeply about. Expressing your concern, for me, it's expressing my concern, providing tangible examples of what's happened previously in the past, and how if they continue on this path, it leads to destruction eventually. You know, I've had it happen a couple times. Sometimes it's successful, you know, and other times they're just not ready. They're just not ready. But eventually they come back around, you know, whether that's months or years, and they say, hey, I should have listened to you. What do I do now?
What do you like? What changes would you implement to, like, before a service member transitions out, like while they're in? What things would you put into place to try to reduce the chances?
Yeah, it's tricky, right? Because, you know, right now the military, they have the transition phase where you see, you know, different people before you get out of the military, whether that's for, you know, jobs or mental health. And, you know, I remember going through it too. But again, at least coming from the unit I was in, right, a very high operational tempo unit, where it was almost, you didn't want to show any weakness because you didn't want to get labeled, and you didn't want to answer yes to any of the questions, right? Like, did you ever feel like your life was in danger or threatened? Oh, never. Why would I ever feel like that? Did you ever feel like you had a problem drinking? Oh, no, I don't want to say yes to that. Because if you say yes to any of these things, then you get this red flag, and there's something wrong with you. And then you think of yourself as damaged goods. And so I think what the military really needs to do is find creative ways to challenge service members when they're getting ready to discharge, and really trying to break that stigmatization away. Because right now, service members they just don't want to admit to something that's going on, because they don't want to be labeled. They don't want to be stigmatized. They don't want to be, you know, part of the statistics. So for me, it's trying to find that sweet spot.
Yeah, I agree. I think one of the hardest things is what's happening, but the difference between getting home in a timely manner and being waylaid by red tape is to answer yes to any of those things on the questionnaire. And I think, yeah, you're absolutely right. It's a stigma thing. Even with all of the revelations that we've gone through in terms of mental health is physical health, still it becomes this hurdle. And I think it's a really interesting thought to normalize it in some way. And instead of being like, get on the plane, you get on the bus, you go to the welcome back ceremony, you fill out the survey, and then you can go home. If it were more of a transitional clinical thing where you just kind of talk a little bit more casually than so formal, maybe that would make a difference. But I digress. I have another question for you regarding statistics, but can you help me formulate in my mind what statistics are there for veterans who are substance abuse, like what are the rates of suicide amongst that community versus non-substance abuse?
So, I think everyone's heard that 22 a day statistic thrown out. I don't think there's any good literature or evidence that suggests a higher rate than what is already published amongst individual or veterans that are suffering from substance abuse. I mean, anecdotally, from personal experience, it does seem like it's higher, as you would expect it. But I don't, being honest, I don't have that answer. And I don't know if there is a good answer yet.
Yeah, there's people that say that it's more, people that say that it's less. It's, I think out of everything, we can just say it's too many.
Yeah, right.
One is too many.
Exactly.
But, going back to what we're talking about, checking the boxes on the list, and the service members are sort of bombarded with those questions a lot. But I think that there's a culture, and I'm not going to say lying, but of not telling the whole truth, wink, wink, from the get-go. Don't tell the recruiter the whole truth. Don't say this, right? Because that's going to end up, you're screwed over in this way. But I think it's going to change, and it has changed, as you can see with the recruiting crisis that we have, which is not necessarily people don't want to join. It's that everything is documented and everybody has access to everything. So you can't say, oh, I don't have that record anymore, because a couple clicks of a button and now everybody knows everything about you. So I think that that has ripple effects throughout, the service and about the people that will be in and the force of the future.
Yeah, I think you're spot on. I mean, welcome to the digital age, right? Where nothing's private anymore.
Right.
So I think that you're exactly right. And I don't know if it's going to be positive or negative. I can see it going both ways in different circumstances. Yeah. But yeah, definitely unprecedented times right now.
Mm-hmm.
So, we've been talking about addiction in terms of substance use. And I'm wondering how, okay, I'm gonna air my dirty laundry. One of my things and how I cope with PTSD is overworking myself. So I say, if I stay busy, then I don't have to really deal with the demons. And I call it being on my hamster wheel, and then I'm circling the drain and I'm in mental fatigue. And that to me is in some ways an addiction. Do you find that addictions expand? Is that common amongst our community? Does it expand out past substance use?
Yeah. So, while, we're focusing on substance abuse topic, right? That is, a chemical addiction, correct? So it doesn't touch on all the behavioral addictions that we see as well. And you're right. In the military culture, in our veteran population, we usually see this phenomenon called sublimation. It's a positive coping mechanism, right? So it's doing a coping mechanism that's actually beneficial. So whether that's sometimes work or working out, the problem is when it becomes to excess and you start to get that workaholism, the workout addiction, dieting addiction, body image addiction. And these are all things that we see that, we see sometimes more prevalent in that veteran community. So they're not necessarily maybe abusing substances, but they are in this vicious cycle of a behavioral addiction. And a lot of it is, trying to cope with an underlying issue, right? Instead of having to deal with your emotions or your past trauma, why don't I just bury myself in X, Y, Z? And so that often becomes an issue that we see too, that we have to tease out in counseling.
Yeah. There's the whole, there's a lot with it. I have a psychologist that helps me deal with autism. And one of the things she says to me a lot is, you have a lot of trauma in your life, but you don't think of it as trauma. And I'm like, yeah, well, I just don't care. It's just the way, and I think different brains process things differently. I have 7 Roombas. That might be my addiction. There's everybody's got their own things. But you, because of your journey, you started Lead the Way Recovery. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah. So, for me, I'm in, kind of Northeast Ohio, right? And I have this personal connection with substance abuse and recovery. I've done addiction medicine, and I'm in my area right now in Ohio. And, it's a big issue in Ohio, West Virginia, Pennsylvania, kind of that tri-state area where the opioid epidemic kind of kicked off back in the early 2000s. And, I was kind of identifying in my local area, there wasn't a lot of good resources for the general population and especially for our veteran population. And, I had taken the opportunity to go explore the current treatment center in the area. And, I came away from it a little not impressed, and it was something that left me desiring more, and I wanted to get involved. And I knew at that point I wanted to take things into my own hand. I wanted to use all the culmination of all my past experiences through the military, through business, through medicine, and create something that can be truly unique. At first, it started as I wanted to be unique to the region, but it's grown to this idea now, and support from others, that it can be an important part, not just the region, but the state of Ohio, and hopefully nationally. Lead the way recovery, right? I think when you hear that, I hope our hopes was I wanted to take it from the Ranger Creed, right? Rangers lead the way, which is a huge mantra in the 75th Ranger Regiment, where I did all my time in the military. I think I think that name is important because it's a clear declaration of what our mission vision is. We want to be at the forefront of addiction treatment. We want to lead the charge with evidence-based practices, innovative treatments, and a deep sense of empathy towards all the patients suffering from addiction, not just general population, but our veterans as well. So that's really how our company was born.
So you once said belonging is not about fitting in, it's about finding a place where you feel at home. I'm curious, Doc, where do you feel the most at home?
Where do I feel the most at home? Yeah, it's tricky, right? For the longest time, even though I blended in and I'm out in society, I'm talking, I'm friends with people, I often felt alone. The times where I feel the most connected is, around people that I had shared experiences with. And for me, it's my Ranger buddies, my spouse who I was with since I've been in the military. So she understands some of the things I went through. But I feel the most connected, the most alive, the most understood when I'm with individuals with shared life experience.
Yeah, it kind of helps you to bond and connect. That makes sense. You can all share your stories, and we can all see that we all have our own stuff to unpack.
Right, everyone's got luggage.
Everyone's got that luggage. Some of us are just checking it, and some of it are carrying it on. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. Is there anything that we didn't touch on that you'd like to hit?
No, I think you guys did a fantastic job. I'm just really grateful that you guys are highlighting this. I think it's an important topic that needs to be continually talked about.
Absolutely. I know we have the Be the One podcast with Amy Forsyth. She talks about that. We have the American Legion has the program, Be the One person that helps somebody to not commit suicide. So that's super important initiative from the Legion. And we thank you so much. Stacy, do you have any parting words for us?
No, I'm just want to thank you so much for your time, and also give your service dog a little pat.
I
There you
will.
go. Awesome. Same to yours. There you go. Well, thank you so much, Dr. Bahr. And I'm just checking where we can find you, Dr. Marshall Bahr, which is BAHR on Facebook, Lead the Way Recovery on Facebook, Twitter, Marshall BAHR MD, and LTW_recovery, and Instagram, Marshall175. You can find him on LinkedIn as well. Go check him out. Thank you so much for joining us today. And Alphas, stick around. We'll be right with you back after the break.
The American Legion is raising awareness about PTSD and veteran suicide by offering hope, camaraderie, and support.
Be the one to help end veteran suicide.
Be the one to save one veteran.
Be the one to ask a veteran in your life how they're doing.
Be the one to reach out when a veteran is struggling.
Go to betheone.org and help the American Legion end veteran suicide.
Will you be the one?
All right, Alphas, welcome back. I hope you had a great break. Now it's time for some scuttlebutt. Stacy, what do you have for us?
Before the awkward preteen Elle spied on the Russians in the sci-fi thriller and hit series Stranger Things, the CIA and DIA were running a pretty eerily similar but very real program called the Stargate. At least that's what author David Morehouse asserts in his book Psychic Warrior. Morehouse, an infantry veteran and accidental psychic, was knocked unconscious after a stray bullet struck his helmet. Upon recovery, he experienced out-of-body episodes. Instead of sending him to the mental health, the Army allegedly placed him in the CIA's version of the Rainbow Room, where he psychically traveled to far-off countries and remotely viewed other places and times. Yeah, I said it, times. So, but Morehouse isn't the first to write about the Cold War era Stargate project. Axel Balthazar, Joseph McGonigal, and others did too. So you can tune into the series on Audible or listen to podcasts on the project, or simply binge watch Stranger Things to get a glimpse into the mind-blowing world of psychic spies. What do you think, Alphas? Are psychic spies stranger than fiction? What do you think, Ashley?
Yeah, I do. There's a I've read a lot about like psychics and the way that things over the years have like ways that people have made money off of others, or made like different types of people that have swindled people in one way or another, or and I have this book called The Strange Adventures of the Mysterious Dr. Q, where he was that guy. It's from like the 1800s or early 1900s, and then he wrote about how he did it. And it breaks down like every trick and things like that. And it's super, super interesting. And it would go from city to city and be able to be a psychic and things like that. There's also, I have a show that I really like called The Mitchell and Webb Look, which is a radio series and also a TV series. And they have a thing called the Stargate. And so the Stargate is some like big blob, and then there's like these workers that work outside the Stargate, but they keep doing things and throwing things into the Stargate. You can't use the Stargate as a bathroom. You don't know what's on the other side.
Oh, man. Well, Alphas, what do you think of psychic spies? Give us an email at tangoalphalima@legion.org and let us know what you think.
Let's see, what else we got here? Here's some movie tech that the DoD should consider developing. Star Wars lightsabers, Mission Impossible sticky gloves. What do you think?
Oh,
Yeah, I would love to be able to climb up. No, I wouldn't. I would not climb up anything. I'd go about 3 feet and then I'd give up. Hunger Games, magic healing cream, Star Trek transporter, Harry Potter invisibility cloak. Would you be invisible if you could?
I already am. Nobody notices me. Kind of like Eeyore.
You are not. I couldn't even see you there. Couldn't even see you. It's just me in this podcast.
I think of all of these in this list, I would think the magic healing cream would be the most advantageous, like the most practical for people at large.
Yeah. I learned recently that sugar dumped on wounds is used as a way to heal, helps your body heal faster. And
Yeah.
that sounds like a lie. And then I went and looked it up, and apparently it's not.
No, honey was one of the oldest ways to heal wounds.
I'm with
Yeah.
you on honey for some reason. Manuka honey, I'm good with antibacterial properties, but just dumping sugar into, and what if you screw up? What if you dump salt? That's a bad surgeon. That's
Oh my God.
malpractice.
That takes me right back to when I was in grade school and kids used to be like, imagine you're going down a slide of razor blades, dumping right into a pool of iodine. Ugh.
What school did you go to?
Some sort of military academy. That's how I School of Hard
Razor
Knocks,
blades.
Ashley.
School of Hard Knocks. Had no idea. Oh my
I
God.
got there walking barefoot uphill both ways in the snow.
And razor blades, yeah. Well, Alphas, if that was your experience, write in, let us know. What movie tech do you think the Pentagon should get into production? All I know about the Pentagon really is that there's a you can buy lottery tickets in the Pentagon. And also, I met a very high ranking SES official, and I was just walking alongside with him, and I said, "Have you ever been to the Pentagon City Mall?" And he was like, "Yeah." Why are you allowed near me? And that's basically been my life.
Sounds amazing. Isn't getting into the Pentagon sort of a lottery in itself anyway?
It's like losing.
Hey, Ashley, I think your hairdo as a signature. Am I right in thinking that?
It's
a
more
signature.
laziness. Yeah, it's laziness. Yeah, when I had long hair, it used to get caught in car doors. It would get stuck in my ice cream. I couldn't have it. So now it's just, I really.
Man, all those hairballs. I can't imagine. Hey,
Yeah, I am licking myself.
The Air Force veteran and famed artist Bob Ross permed his hair, so he had to fall back on a signature look. You know what I'm saying? So he was more recognizable. And contrary to the rumors that are out there that Bob's fro was forced on him by TV execs, he actually came up with that curly halo himself. He not only painted artful trees and little rock friends, his signature bush was something he thought up and also helped him save money on haircuts, which is always great for a starving artist. So, well, he eventually became famous, as we know, and probably not so starving, but his hair, by the time he became famous and rich enough to afford haircuts, had become his icon and logo. And at that point, he couldn't stop the perm and pick. He couldn't go back naturally straight. Anyway, how about you, Ashley? Any plans for shaking up the look? You gonna go for a perm?
No perms for me. I've recently started using hair dust. So I am growing out the sides a little bit because I'm able to play with it more. Mine is really just about what kind of silly things can I do? Make your hair whatever the heck you want it to be and give everybody else the middle finger that doesn't like it. And I think that's what Bob Ross wrote about in his book, Please Get Off of My Lawn. He was a drill instructor.
That's something.
Yeah, I'd be yelled at by Bob Ross.
I can't imagine him yelling. I feel like
He just
everything that he
whispered.
ever did was sort of like in a half whisper.
Do you think that it would be more terrifying to have a drill instructor that was whispering the entire time or yelling the entire time?
Well, when they sneak up behind you, the whisper is definitely
Oh God. Yeah, I felt that.
Yeah, in the back of your neck, really. What do you think, Alpha? Should Ashley go for a fro, or is that a no fro for launch? Email us your opinions.
Yep. Let me know because I am known for doing what other people want me to do. That's something I am famous for, just going with the flow. Don't forget to subscribe. You can subscribe to the podcast, Tango Alpha Lima, our newsletter. Send us mail, guest recommendations at legion.org/Tango Alpha Lima. We want to hear from you. And it's been lovely being in your ears. Until next time. Oh, by the way, earwax is actually technically sweat. Goodbye.
Yeah, I think I like it.